I love house hacking. I'm going to continue house hacking. Today, I'm really here to talk about how I started as a house hacker and I purchased my second house hack only 13 months later. I know that probably sounds pretty crazy out loud to say, but stay tuned and you'll find out how I did it. Some of you might recognize me. My name is Noah Bacon, and I'm the community manager here at Bigger Pockets. I started just a mere year and a half ago into my career, and I purchased my first house hack. My first property, I was in a single family condo, and I thought, this process has been really great. I'll just look for the same exact thing. So I looked for a single family home. It was a 3-bed, 3.5 bath, 1,500 square feet. Perfect for me because I was currently in the exact same layout in my property in my first house hack. And then moving into my second one, I thought, I can't do this wrong. I've already done it once before. Getting into some of the details, I purchased this one at $345,000. On paper, it was listed as a 2-bedroom. Walking the property with my agent, I knew I could easily, with a couple $1,000s of sweat equity, turn this into a 3-bedroom and mimic the process I just did all over again. It was listed at $350,000, so we actually negotiated down $5,000 from the seller. It wasn't turnkey exactly like my first one, but I had just a couple of projects that I thought, I can house hack and do a little bit of a live and flip burr style. I thought this would potentially increase my equity on the way out. Did a couple of projects while I lived there, just fixed up the floors, added LVP, added a wall and a door to the basement. So I created a 3rd bedroom essentially. So the first part would be the financing of the property, because I'm sure that's one of the biggest question marks. How do you go and buy a property after, having one just 13 months before? So with this time around, in my first property, I was living very, very frugally. I was only making about $50,000 a year at my job. And I was actually netting about $200 a month of cash flow from my rental income from my tenants. At that time, I didn't have any car payments, didn't have any credit card debt, fortunately didn't have any student loans. So I was really just set off with absolutely no money in my bank account. I was dumping it all into my first property, just setting off completely at zero. So I think this will be a really great start for any of those that potentially don't have any of that outstanding debt, don't have a car payment that could potentially affect your debt to income ratio when it comes to qualifying. So I can tell you a little bit about those tips and tricks of just budgeting and how I was able to really save up and use my resources for the second time around. So getting into qualifying then, I obviously found the property. It was a tougher situation this time around because I had actually switched job industries. My first job, I was working, and my college degree was in healthcare, so I had plenty of backing to get through with the qualification all on my own there, using my traditional financing with my years of experience, and then using my future employment letter for a conventional mortgage. This time around, it obviously wasn't so easy since I was having to prove that I had rental income in my primary residence. Took a lot during tax season just breaking that out and explaining, which part of the house is mine, which part of the house is shared, and basically which part of the house is the tenants, because it essentially wasn't my part of the house while I was living there. That obviously did help me for qualifying, but switching job industries, going from health into my current role in real estate, I was not able to qualify for a conventional loan by myself on paper. So very, very fortunate that I had my father was able to co-sign with me, and I obviously gave him a lot of benefits that will come at the end of the road for him. But looking at that partnership, I had all the money in the property, and he had his name on the loan and on title. And again, at the end of the day, him having no equity in the property, it's great for me. Obviously, I can acquire the property. For him, it doesn't affect him other than his debt to income ratio. So we had multiple conversations about what's your retirement goals? When are you looking to retire? Are you looking to finance anything? So obviously impacting his debt to income ratio, we had a lot of things to consider. We were aligned on the partnership, and we'll obviously have a really great day for him at the end when we decide to either refinance or sell. Looking back, if I did not have a co-signer at that time, I really would have been in a tougher spot where I would have had to wait at least another 11 months to get 2 years of just qualifying that I had 2 years of employment in the real estate space. I was definitely in a bit of a rush. Times were changing with rates and everything. Rates were definitely going up, so I wanted to get in there right away. Using my track record for my first property, my father was really comfortable to co-sign with me on it. So if you do have a resource like that in your life, use your track record from your first house hack. Show them that you've done this. Show them that you're proven real estate investor and that you've got the fire in your belly to keep doing it again, and that you want to acquire that second property. I'm sure if it's not a close relative, you can still make that pitch to somebody in your personal life, somebody in your network, or even you find a connection on the forums and you have no idea what kind of partnerships that you can find moving forward. Mimicking that process, it may have sounded really easy from the qualifying and just looking at it, But you obviously are living with your tenants. So you have a lot to think about while you're living in that property, moving out of that property, and then moving into a new property. So you have a whole lot of moving parts. For me, it was a really, really seamless transition. I'm sure it's not going to be as easy for everybody, but I would like to credit my due diligence on my tenant screening back 13 months on my first property to credit me for the seamless transition into my second property. I had an amazing relationship with my tenants / roommates while I was living in my first property. I actually took one with me. One stayed, and he actually kind of acted as a property manager while he was there, helped me find tenants to move in that were his coworkers, and it was a long-term rental. So very, very fortunate that this tenant was able to do this for me. I actually decreased his rent so he could do that for me because he was essentially being the eyes on the property and being my leasing manager down there. My second tenant, my first property that I brought to my second house hack, he actually referred me to one of his coworkers, and it turns out that we just had a great relationship. So he moved right in and we just had basically no days of vacancy. I'm sure that won't be, again, the easiest process for everybody. I would absolutely budget 30 days of vacancy minimum as you're moving out of your first property, as a lot of things are going to change. You have to market that property as you're basically moving out. So get the cleaners in there, get everything in there that you can. And if you do think it's going to be too much on you as you're obviously purchasing another primary residence, moving people into your primary residence, if it's going to be too much to go and do all that at the same time, as it was a lot for me at that time, go ahead and start looking for a property manager before you look for your second property. I know it's not the best thing. You give away your 10% right away to a long-term rental, but hey, if you want to get into your next property and you're going to cash flow there as well, I would say go ahead and do it. You can absolutely go and find a property manager in your local area on a Google search. The way I did it, I would highly recommend you go into the Bigger Pockets forums. There's so many great resources on there, especially those that are property managers or potentially brokers that are property managers. So they work with investor friendly agent, but they also, manage properties for hundreds of smaller investors like me and hopefully like you here soon. So that was my real ease of transition out of the property. But again, doing your due diligence for screening is what's going to be your saving grace during that time. So obviously you can hear that your roommates or your tenants will either be your biggest asset or they could be your biggest liability while you're living there. With what I've done, I would say that they have been my biggest asset, and it was definitely going back to just the due diligence that we had during the screening process. Made it mandatory that we had a FaceTime call, made it mandatory that they came and visited the property before they moved in. So it really helped just create a great relationship. And then I would also say another key thing that I did that will obviously hurt your cash flow. I took the most private room. I lived in the basement while my two tenants would live upstairs. Our real interaction would be just when we were trying to cook at the same time. I would recommend, if you really like your privacy, you don't want to be having somebody on the wall right next to you or too close to you in your own primary residence. Take the room that's going to give you the most privacy, give you the most luxury that you're going to still have your own personal life while you're able to keep your house as a business. I think that was, for me, just getting home from work every day and having my own space below everybody. Had my own 500 square feet where we had our shared 500 square feet and they had their own 500 square feet. So I think that really separated the house hacking for me, even though it was obviously I was outnumbered in the property from my tenants. So I think that kept me sane. It definitely was one of the biggest takeaways I had from it. And then I would just say, moving forward, you need to just keep a clear mind of what your strategy is. I love house hacking. I'm going to continue house hacking. I'm going to continue building it into my portfolio as best as I can, as appropriately as I can. There will be a time eventually I'll stop house hacking. I think the goal will either be looking for a single family home and something that will have either a separate entrance or an accessible dwelling unit, also known as ADU. I would really like to get that privacy a little bit more defined, I would think, on the next house hack, where we maybe have two doors going into the house and you take the basement, I take the upstairs, or you live in the backyard and we do a short-term rental. And then my last takeaway would just be defining your why. There's no reason that I'm looking, 30, 40 years down the road at retirement at this stage of my life. I'm only a 25-year-old, so I'm doing a lot of these things. I'm very intentionally reinvesting all of my profits right back into my portfolio. I'm not looking to use my cash flow to supplement my personal life by any means. I use my paycheck to do that. I think if you can really separate your business and your personal life, it's going to make you get ahead so much faster in this game than you can really even imagine that you could. Just look at my story. And in the 13 months, I was saving very frugally with my paycheck, but also reinvesting my cash flow right back into my portfolio. So I would love to retire early, as I think we all would. But this stage of my professional career, that has never been a thought. And if you can just really have that why of let's build this portfolio for the end game. That's really why I'm doing it. It'll support my family when that time comes and support the generations after me. And that's the real reason why I'm doing it. So if you can define your why, I would say that's your biggest step. And then after that, create your budget. After you create your budget, create your strategy. And after you create your strategy, stick to that strategy and don't get off track of that strategy. Well, that concludes my time. I really cannot thank all of you enough for watching. I really, really hope to see you all in the forums if you're not going to be watching this video. But if you are watching this video, that's obviously great news for me. If you're on the forums, you can connect with me. My handle is Noah Bacon. And if you're going to be looking for me on socials, you can go to Instagram, and my handle there is Macon Bacon REI. I can't thank you enough again for watching, and please like and subscribe to the Bigger Pockets YouTube channel. I will see you all in the forums real soon.